You're listening to the God Stories Radio Podcast with Mike, Fritz, and Tina. Listen to us live on the Mixlr app. Also, be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio and you will never miss an episode.
Welcome, everyone, to God Stories Radio. This is session 211. I'm Fritz.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Tina.
211, Mikey.
211, wow.
What is going on with that?
I don't know, but it's exciting.
I know, right? God's just blowing it up.
Right.
He is.
Nothing we're doing.
Still letting us be stewards.
Yeah, sorry about last week.
Right, yeah.
To all the listeners, I got caught up at work in a project.
Yeah, you've been working like crazy lately.
Yeah, we were installing a giant new screen in the sanctuary. And
projector screen.
New laser projector and all of that, and it just ran long, so I couldn't leave.
Yeah, it's going to happen sometimes.
I know it. What's going on over there, Mikey?
Oh, it feels good to be here after a couple weeks.
It sure does.
July 4th, and then last week.
And then we're off next week.
Yeah. And Mikey got a haircut. Did you notice?
I did today. I did.
I did kind of see the light beaming. He's glowing.
And I know you go to Bangs, right? You go to Bangs.
Bangs.
I do go to Bangs.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Bangs.
Yep. And your stylist's name is?
Jackie.
Jackie. So Jackie at Bangs, you did a great job.
Bangs. You betcha.
She does a good job. And her and I talk a lot. We got things, kind of in common stuff, and I guess she can't wait for me to come in. I can't wait to go there and hear the.
Aww.
I only go once every 2 months because that's all I can afford. So,
well, didn't she cut your hair free for the Barbara
for the
Beck
show?
Interview?
Yeah.
Yes, when we went to see Barbara Beck. Yes.
Oh.
That was
Shout
cool.
out to Jackie.
Yeah, she's awesome.
We got a seat here for you, Jackie.
Yeah.
Come on. But Bangs hair style.
Yep.
Salon.
Bangs, yeah.
Is that, they still call them salons?
I would assume so, yeah.
Well, they're not flight attendants anymore, so it could be salon.
It's in Clermont next to that Italian restaurant.
Well, there you go.
Corelli's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Corelli's. Ooh, that's another one.
Mm-hmm.
You been to Corelli's?
Yes, I have.
I knew the answer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That place is unbelievable.
I search out Italian food. That's why I stay always 10 to 15 pounds over my
gosh. Some hand-spun authentic in there, boy.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, babe, we got any shout-outs tonight?
We do. We have one Facebook like.
All right.
So we want to say thank you to Michael J. Richard.
Michael J. Richard.
Thank you for liking us.
Welcome to the GSR family, and thank you for saving me from that awkward moment.
And anyone out there, if you have not liked us yet on Facebook, please do so we don't have that awkward moment.
How do you say it? Awkward?
Awkward.
That's the Boston, right?
That is the Boston.
Yeah. I'm not from Boston, though.
Really?
I don't talk the call.
So now where are you from?
Springfield.
Okay, so still.
That's still Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It's still Massachusetts, but we don't park the call.
You don't park the car.
No.
You're the yard?
No.
Do you get any ideas?
Yeah.
The only reason I know that is because of my stepmom. Hardcore Boston. Wicked hardcore Boston.
Like
Wicked,
Brother John
Wicked
Durham.
hardcore.
Like the garbage.
Like our brother John.
Yeah.
Love that guy. I got to get him back on here.
Yeah, really.
He was on for our anniversary.
Yes, him and a few others.
And we had a room full. I know that you were talking about that earlier, but having a room full. Anyway, enough. I want to get to our guest because I'm just jumping right in there.
So silly.
We could be here for hours.
I'd prefer to listen to you, so we can just keep going.
No, it's not about me, buddy. You're in the hot seat tonight.
That's right. Yeah.
And we love it. We so appreciate you coming. But
well, it's my honor.
I will let you do the honors, babe.
Okay, well, thank you. I just want to thank our guest. First of all, he has an incredibly busy schedule, and yet he went ahead and took time out to come do the show, which is not surprising because he's always giving back to the community.
Amen to that.
Has done so for many, many years. He is, I don't know that I could call it a small business. It would probably be larger than a small business.
I would say.
It doesn't often feel small anymore.
Right. So I would say between a medium and a large business owner.
I'll take it.
A Christian through and through, and he owns and operates the Chick-Fil-A's in Clermont, Florida. And it's our privilege to have on the show Mr. Rocky DeStefano.
Thank you. And I tell you what, you killed the name, and not everybody does. I've heard it pronounced many, many ways, so you did great.
Well,
that's all right,
you.
Rocky. My last name is Amrhein, Amrhein, and you talk about a butcher shop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I just say yes. Yes. That's me.
Whatever
you want to.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Right. And
Whatever
we're going to, and from what we've been talking earlier, we are going to get actually a testimony that he actually hasn't put out there yet.
No, that's true. Nothing formalized. In fact, the funny thing, I was thinking about this earlier today. This will be, my daughters will listen to this and learn more about my testimony
Wow.
than, and it's kind of sad. I should have been telling them all along, but
But I think that's true for all of us, Rocky.
Yeah.
I think I've had a lot of people after I gave my testimony at Real Life. People came up to me and said, "Man, I really learned a lot about you."
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think my daughters are at that age where they like me. Kind of, so it just depends on the moment. I don't always.
Are they 15?
So I've got 17,
Situational likeness.
19, and then I've got an older one who's 22.
Oh,
she
God
fully
bless you.
likes me now.
Okay.
But the other two,
You're not as crazy as she
yeah,
thought.
it's 50-50. Yeah, I'm
Right.
starting to get smarter again. So.
All girls, you're outnumbered, huh?
Yes. Even my
Wow.
cat is neutered, I like to say. We're in
You are
trouble.
in it to win it, man, by
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
Please pray for Rocky.
Yeah, we got to pray for weddings and, money to pay for
Yeah,
it.
that's
and,
it, man. Lord bless him now.
Yeah.
Well, take us back to the beginning, Rocky. Tell us
Sure.
where you're from and your roots, your heritage, etc.
Yeah, so I'm a very proud first-generation Italian American, and so both my father was born and raised in Italy, in Naples, Italy, and my mother had really just come over. She was from Sicily, and so they kind of ended up in Cleveland, Ohio, and so,
Not New York?
No,
From
right?
Sicily
Yeah,
to Cleveland.
yeah, and
Wow.
and then back to Naples too, because we at one point lived in Naples, Florida. So my father liked to say it was a
Okay,
long
yeah,
trip
yeah.
back to Naples.
Talk about your classic culture shock.
Yes,
there.
yes. But most of our relatives ended up in New York, but we ended up in Cleveland, and we were in this amazing community, and it was really an immigrant community. I mean, I grew up with kids from Poland and Germany, and the Irish, and it was amazing. This big, huge melting pot, and we got along great. We all grew up together, and nobody killed each other, so it was kind of nice.
Do you have a lot of brothers and sisters?
Yeah, so I was the youngest of 5. I had 4 older sisters. So God definitely knew what he was doing by giving me daughters. I understand women. I like to say I think I understand women from being always outnumbered.
Are you working on your book?
No, no, there's no book. I don't
no
have
book?
any. I didn't learn. I learned the hard way.
You're going to owe it to us guys, Dan.
Yeah.
He's talking an awful lot considering I'm the only woman in the household besides the dog.
Well, yeah, yeah. He maybe just did it a little bit smarter. I've always been outnumbered. I like to tell my daughters, I pray you have all boys, so you understand what it's like to be the only one of your kind in the house, because I'm very outnumbered.
Right. Well,
like
I
how he
have
says
4
that,
children of my own.
The only one of your kind.
That's right, yes.
I have 4 children of my own. My oldest was my son, and then I had 3 daughters.
Oh, you got it.
And
you understand.
And the boy was absolutely positively the easiest one to
Well, that's
raise.
because we understand them,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think what it comes down to.
Oh
'Cause-
boy, the girls, all the drama and
So my girls aren't terribly dramatic, but I will say that often I don't know what I've done to upset them. That I will say. But it was like that growing up too with my older sisters. I was always outnumbered. So we grew up in this area of Cleveland, and it was very working class. We did not have an easy road. I mean, anytime you're from another country trying to make your way. My father had all the stories he'd taken advantage of by different businesses as he was learning English, starting at the bottom again and trying to build himself up. And we had some tough times for sure, but it didn't seem tough. We didn't really know any different. Looking back, I realized, man, we were really poor, but I didn't feel it because I think that they tried their best to be really good parents. So now
It was probably all in the presentation too.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and
Back
Italian
then.
food goes a long way, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
it does.
pasta's pretty cheap, so
Yeah,
we're okay.
That's true.
Yeah. But we hit a glitch though. My father he had been working very hard. He really prided himself as a person who could provide for his family, and he had gotten into a accident at work that back then we weren't even sure if he would be able to recover. In fact, I remember being, my gosh, 5 or 6 and rushing to the hospital to find out he was going into surgery. And he was laid up for months upon months. And then he actually had to take early retirement on a disability. And so he just changed. Like, he was the man who provided for his family. And all of a sudden he couldn't. And he was at home for a lot of hours. And you know how they say the idle mind is a workshop for the devil.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
And it just worked on him. And so he began to drink. And when he began to drink, he began to be violent. Some people are happy drunks. And my father was not one of those people. And so we had a really rough go. And so I kind of became early, teens. I was a very angry young person. Just very angry, felt like the world had not been fair to us. I knew my parents loved us, but I questioned some of the things that I saw and went on. And I know my sisters did too. The story of my sisters are, as they were old enough, they escaped. And sometimes they escaped to the first guy they met, unfortunately. Luckily, they all, except for, well, actually, my 2 oldest ended up with great men, and my 2 youngest had to still looking for their great man, maybe I should say. But so I found myself kind of just very angry and kind of what I always say is, on the appearance, I looked fine, but I was reckless. I was a reckless kid, and there were things that, had I been caught, could have really impacted my life from that point forward, So my parents kind of realized that something had to change. And my dad had really started realizing, he went through a tough 10-year stretch, and then he kind of woke up out of his fog. And we moved to Florida to kind of get away from Cleveland, to get away from all the pressures and what we knew, and in some ways to kind of reinvent ourselves. And I was lost because everything I knew was in Cleveland. I still had the anger, but now I had anger without friends,
And how old were you when you moved?
We moved right between middle and high school, so it was a shock. It's hard enough to move, into high school, but then to do it, to a new state, new everything. And so, I kind of did a lot of dumb things, but thankfully God really looked after me, and I never got in any kind of real trouble. And then I kind of met, and it was fortune, I met the one constant in my life has been Chick-fil-A. And it's crazy to say it, but Chick-fil-A has been in my life since 1986. So I'm going on well over 30 years now with Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
And so what happened was I was working at one of our competitors, McDonald's, and I was quite possibly the worst employee they've ever had. I mean, just awful. I don't know how they kept me. Just a terribly stupid things all the time. I just was such a reckless guy. I don't know why, but it worked out how it was supposed to. And so I actually got fired from McDonald's for causing trouble, of course. And I knew my dad, even though he had started changing, he still had his violent streak. And so I knew that if he heard I got fired, it would be a really big battle.
Boy. Wow.
Yeah. And so I would get up and I would dress in my uniform and go out and change and then look for a job. Because I figured, well, if I come home with a job, it'll be less bad than if he finds out I just left. And I did this for about a week and a half. I couldn't find anything. I mean, back then, people didn't hire kids as much as they do now. There wasn't as many.
It was more of a face-to-face kind of
thing. That's right.
You really didn't get hired unless you walked in somewhere and you met with the manager
yes.
and all.
Yeah, and sometimes it's somebody you know.
Right.
And so I literally was in the mall killing time when I was supposed to be at work. I couldn't just show back up at home. And I was walking out of a store and I saw Chick-Fil-A. And I didn't have any idea what Chick-fil-A was. I never even had it. And I said, you know what? Let me try. So I walked into the store and I said, hey, I'd like to fill an application out, and met this gentleman with a mustache. And he said, hey, I'm the owner. I'll come sit down and talk to you, which I was shocked. And so he sat down with me and we began to talk and have an interview. And I found out that he was a first generation American, Italian American. His parents were from Naples. My parents were from Naples. He lived in Cleveland most of his life. I lived in Cleveland most of my life. Just this amazing thing where I started realizing, wow, this is so many.
All the little details.
Yeah. Just was amazing to me. And so I did something super out of character. Joe looked at me and he said, what would McDonald's say if I called and asked what type of worker you are? And I said, and I told the truth, which was really rare for me back then. And I said, Joe, they would tell you that I was the worst employee that ever had and that you should run away and never give me a job. And he looked at me and I could tell he was shocked, and I was shocked I said it. And he said, okay, I'll give you a call in a couple of days and let you know. And I walked out sure that there was no way that I was ever going to get a job. And really shockingly to me, he called me and offered me a job. And
wow, that's God's grace.
But
right
unreal.
The honesty challenges people.
It does.
They don't expect that. He never in a million years expected him to say that.
Right.
Yeah,
that
I didn't expect me to say it, so that had to be a God thing.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, he had to hire you.
Well, thank God he did. So I was able to tell my father, okay, I did get fired, but I have a job, and so that was okay, and I kept away from any kind of trouble. But Joe and his wife were everything opposite of my family. So my family, we were kind of dysfunctional. We were raised Catholic, so church was always part of our life, but we didn't have a relationship with Christ at all. It was a formality. And Joe and his wife were these amazing born-again ex-Catholics, just on fire for God. Yeah, you kind of escaped, right?
Ex-Catholic, yep.
That's right, yeah. And they had 2 kids, and the kids got along great with them, and it was just great unit. And so over the years I worked for them, they kind of became like my surrogate parents. And what I always say is I had a good set of regular parents, and then I had a great set of Christian parents. And so I began to see how I wanted my future to look. But I didn't know what was different about them. I just knew they were different. I was shocked that Joe's kids wanted to be with him, because I didn't always want to be with my dad,
Oh, wow.
So after working there a little bit, I kind of realized that Joe was a Christian, because he did not hide it at all. And so I was trying to get out of work. I was feeling extra lazy one night, and I was coming off break, and I said, if I get Joe talking about God, I can milk this break for a little bit longer. And so I asked him a question. And 30 minutes later, I walked downstairs and the change had started because I had not heard the things that he presented ever in the Catholic Church.
Right.
I heard it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I heard it. They said it, but it just didn't take hold. And so I realized at that point that I really had to change. It was something in me that had to change. And so over the next week, between Joe and a gentleman who became my best friend, Stephen Bean, they just attacked me from both sides. They just wouldn't let go. I mean, they just kept hammering me with conviction and, encouraging me to read the Bible. And, it was an amazing period. And I came out of it accepting Christ and realizing, okay, this is the difference in Joe's family. This is what God can do to something that's broken, And I was the first in my family that was a born-again Christian. And at first my parents were very nervous. They did not want me leaving the Catholic Church. They were pretty sure that I was going to a cult. That just didn't understand it. We joke, but my mom at one point actually called the pastor of the church I was going to a warlock, not a witch. There's all that Italian,
Wow.
superstition built in.
Yeah,
in fact, I joke around and tell a story. And maybe you understand this, Mike, but we had a statue of the Virgin Mother in our house. And she was in a box. And anytime somebody passed, our tradition was they closed the box for 3 days and they wore black. So it was just, I don't know if it was maybe the village my parents were from. When I left the Catholic Church, they closed the box and they wore black for 3 days. It was really an interesting transition, but that, I feel like that was the beginnings of my conversion. But I think God has saved me continuously from a bunch of different things. Yeah. So I think he got a hold of me at that point, but there were still issues I had. I still had a love of money. I still had this anger in me. And I feel like over the years, I don't think you're born again many times, but I think God really takes this, this stuff from you that is broken in you. So that it slowly happened. And a lot of it, thankfully, was because of Chick-Fil-A. And so the more I became involved with Chick-fil-A and became involved with Joe and his wife and his kids, the more I realized what was out there. Like, I was never planning on going to college. I just wasn't really a great student, didn't have a desire for it. But I just started realizing, hey, maybe God's got something for me. And Joe used to talk a lot about that there's 3M's in your life that you have to figure out. And he used to say, and he used to actually do this little thing with his hand where he'd say 3M's, and it was your master, your mission, and your mate. And those were the three biggest decisions that every person had. And so now that I had my master, I understood who I was following, and I was trying my best to live this life that was like Christ. The others started falling into place. And again, all because of the influence of Chick-fil-A, which is crazy to think about.
Right.
So they, Joe and Danny, realized that I probably on my own would not go to college. And so they encouraged me, actually helped me to fill out some scholarships, and ended up getting a scholarship to a college outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And while I was there, I met my mate, Tricia, who we're still married, been married now for, and if I get this wrong, I'm probably in trouble, but 27 years.
Wow,
Yeah,
congratulations.
27
I
years.
tell you, just don't hear that anymore.
No.
It's so nice to hear that.
It's not easy, I can
Oh,
tell,
I
right?
know.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
anybody who's been married, it's a tough road, but
Yes, sir.
but she has been. There's a lot of laughter.
Well,
there's stories here I don't know
There
about.
was, I know that laugh.
He
huh?
piped up with that, yes, sir, real quick, didn't he?
Yes,
Well,
he did.
I was just in agreement that it takes work, It's two becoming one, and
That's right.
All right. Sorry to interrupt your.
Sometime I'll have to hear that story.
There's plenty to go around.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stories, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I did meet Tricia, and I knew pretty much right away that she was somebody that I wanted to marry, and so graciously she agreed, which was nice. Mm-hmm. And we've been together ever since. And then after college, I started realizing that I liked the idea of being Joe. It wasn't so much Chick-fil-A, but started thinking back to what an influence Joe had on me. And it wasn't just me. That was the amazing thing. I felt like he was giving all of his attention to me, but he was giving it to everybody. And so he was just producing this fruit that was amazing. So I started thinking about, hey, I need to try to own my own Chick-fil-A. And so I went to Atlanta and interviewed and got to the very last interview, and they told me no.
Wow.
And I was just shocked because that was not how it was supposed to happen.
No.
And, I thought for sure, and I was a little bit upset and trying to figure things out. But I didn't know what to do, so I had been offered a scholarship to law school, and I said, I don't know what else to do, so I guess I'll go to law school. And so I did, and moved down to West Palm Beach and actually drove to Miami every day to go to law school. And knew pretty quickly that I was not going to be a good attorney. I would make money, but I would not be a very good person. You kind of know yourself, and the competitiveness, the anger was still there, and I didn't like how I acted anytime I was anywhere near a court. So I would pray every day. I had an hour drive, and I would pray every day that God would show me a way, because I was pretty sure this wasn't it, but I didn't know what it was. And so thankfully, about halfway through, I got a phone call out of nowhere, and they said, hey, why aren't you with Chick-fil-A? And I said, well, you guys turned me down. And they said, well, why don't you start the process again? So I started the process again and ended up never finishing law school because they offered me the chance to come on board, and I've been with them officially ever since, and that was 1992. So going a long time, yeah. But it's been amazing to me because I don't think you can get saved because of a Chick-fil-A sandwich, but it kind of seems like what happened to me. So
I think you were way ahead of the curve because you said early on in your testimony that you were aware that God had something for you.
Yeah.
That you felt that early on.
I didn't know what.
I probably had those warnings too. I just ignored them.
No, I just knew that there was something he had, but I didn't know what. And it's been a strange trip for sure. So, but that's pretty much how I became a Christian. And now I've really tried to, when people talk about anything that I've done good, I'm very uncomfortable with it because, we know ourselves. Like we know what we think and all the terrible things we, because we hear our own thoughts. I'm uncomfortable with people saying how good I am or anything because I'm not. I'm a sinner like anybody else. And yet God has given me a voice and given me some influence.
Amen.
And as much as I can, I want to try to use that. And I try to be as Joe to the kids.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Are you being Joe in the two Chick-fil-A's that you own right now?
I sure try to be. It's a much different political climate legally.
Absolutely.
So we do have to be more cautious, but I don't hide who I am. In fact, I thought for a while I began to hide a little bit who I was. And then I just said, I'm not going to do it. And so I tell every new team member that joins us, this is who I am. And I'm not asking you to be this way, but I need you to understand why I'm this way and why the things that I ask you to do are different. Because if you don't know that it's because I'm coming from this perspective of the Bible, you're just going to think that they're rules and that they don't have any purpose, but they do have purpose. So I don't hide who I am, but I don't push either. But I haven't had to. I feel like people that age specifically are looking. They're searching. They want to know what's up.
Absolutely.
And they're spiritual beyond belief. They just don't always have the guide to push them toward Christ.
And so long as you're that constant light
Yeah.
where you're at, which I try to be where I'm at.
It's tough sometimes.
It is.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like I'm doing a decent job. I definitely don't feel like I do enough. And as we've grown in size, and you mentioned this, Tina, as we've gone from, my first store, we had 20 people, and I knew everybody. I knew them intimately. I knew their likes and their hobbies, and my wife and I would go watch them, in plays and band. And then we started having kids, and we started having 60 team members, and now we have 180.
Wow.
And it's a really different feel.
180.
Yeah, and I don't feel like I can be that to everybody. But
Sure.
Thankfully, I've got people like Danny and Zach and Agilon and all these amazing Christians that come up and just hold my team accountable and point them in the right direction. And so it's been nice to see other people now having this influence.
Boy, amen to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Training the leaders now for the
Yes.
next generation.
yeah. In fact, my son-in-law has been working with us. And I think he was a Christian for sure, but I think his faith has gotten so deep while he's been at our store, and it's nothing to do with me. In fact, it's everything to do with one of our leadership named Eric, Eric's a pastor. I mean, God has called him. He just hasn't got a church yet. But I look at Eric and I'm like, I don't know how long you're going to be here, but I know where you're heading. And Eric has mentored Nick, my son-in-law, and Nick's faith has just grown. And it's been good because I think it's hard to influence sometimes your son-in-law, your family.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's great to have people come alongside you,
And you have such a rare opportunity to see some of the fruit.
I do.
That's such a blessing in itself.
Yeah, and sometimes we all know this, you don't always see it right away. We had our very first store was in Fort Lauderdale, and it was a place called Plantation, which it was like 53% Jewish.
Oh, wow.
So most of my kids were Jewish.
Know it well from Boca Raton.
And it's a great area, but we got really close to two young people, Elise and Scott, and they used to come to church with us. And Scott just called us about 2 years ago, and we hadn't talked to him probably in 15 years, but he wanted to let us know that he was getting baptized and that he traced it back to the times that we brought him to church that we had, not me, but God had planted things in him. So
That's
that
awesome.
was a real cool, because we don't get to see that very often,
Right.
No.
So
How nice of him to call and let you know that.
Yeah.
yes, it was very nice. So
Seed time and harvest.
I know.
That's right. You don't always get to see the harvest. That's a very special
well, it's just like your
occasion.
show. I feel like there's so much being planted, and I think when you get to heaven, you're gonna a lot of people are going to walk up and say, hey, but you don't realize it.
No,
until,
you don't.
Yeah.
In fact, the first was 2 years, was it, Mikey? Our first year that we heard nothing.
Yeah. It was 2 years, 2+.
2 years we heard nothing.
Absolutely
from
nothing.
anybody, and we didn't know, is this stuff working?
Right.
Are
Is it going out there?
Is it going out there? Is somebody
Are
listening?
people listening?
Yeah, but
So
you felt like you were supposed to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, we just kind of Mikey says, I'm going to change the way I'm praying,
Right.
and we call it the bone. That we ask the Lord for a bone, throw us a bone,
Right.
let us know, show us what the future looks like. Is this, are we heading in the right direction? And after that, several months later, the floodgates opened.
Yeah,
We started
which is-
hearing from people, and people were sending in testimonies and
Yeah.
to read, and now we're hearing from people in Zimbabwe that want to give their testimony. Now I got to figure out how to do a testimony from Zimbabwe because
what a great problem to have, right?
It is a very good problem.
Right?
Yeah.
And like I always said, the Lord said we would do greater things than even He did when He was on the earth, and I could never imagine what that would be. How could you do something greater than that?
96 countries.
Here we are.
Well, and I think it's great, and I think it's one of the most amazing things about God is that He involves us in the process.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need us. I mean,
No.
He's all powerful. He
Right.
doesn't need any help.
Nope.
But He allows us. He wants us to take part because He cares about you and He cares about how you feel. And He wants you to know that you're having influence, no matter how small sometimes you feel, which we've all felt small at different times,
Oh, you bet.
You just reminded me of what Pastor Renault from Mosaic
He's
Church.
great. First of all, he could say anything to me with that accent, and I would believe him.
He can preach the phone book.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what.
He sounds so intelligent.
He blew us away. He came
Yes.
and he just a couple of shows ago, he came and we were just blown away. I was
He's awesome.
able to talk to him about Axum Coffee and how that got started.
It's a cool story.
Oh, it is
But
amazing.
he talked about, he illustrated a story about himself making pancakes and his kids wanting to be involved,
Yes.
and he's thinking in his head, of course, oh my gosh, the kids are going to make a huge mess. I'm going to have more to clean up. It's going to take forever for us to eat, etc. But at the end of the day, the kids are going to be happy because all they want to do is spend time with Dad.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's the same way with us and God. We just want to be in the kitchen.
That's right. Yeah. And that's a great, right
It really
there,
was.
That was good. I don't know if she planned it, but that was perfect.
Yeah.
Because I think we do. We want to be in the kitchen and we want to know that we're part of something greater.
Yes.
Because I think we believe it. That's what attracted me to God is this terrible, sinful person, and God still desires this relationship with me. And I don't know why, but it's great to be part of something that is so, moving. So,
Boy, that's the truth.
yeah. And I would say, we talk a lot at the store, and I talk a lot about Chick-fil-A because it's been a lot of my life.
How can you not?
Yeah. I mean, it's been part of my life longer than my wife, longer than my kids. And it's had this tremendous influence. And it all started because God influenced one gentleman who decided that he was going to open a restaurant and he wanted to close on Sunday because he wanted to honor God. And 50, 60 years later, it's a restaurant doing $11 billion a year and 75,000 employees. And it's amazing to me how it all started with one person that was influenced by God. And I'm amazed. We talk a lot with our kids at the store. We ask permission for us to be kind to them. And they normally don't understand. And so we say, we can be nice or we can be kind. And if we're nice, I'll tell you what you want to hear because I care. I only want you to like me. I want you to feel good about me. But if I'm kind, I'll tell you what's going to help you grow. And kindness, sometimes you don't want to hear it.
Nope.
But I feel that way about God. I mean, our God is a kind God. And He tells me and has me go through things that I need to.
Right.
Because He loves me. And it's not easy, and we find ourselves in messes
true.
a lot of times because we
Right.
don't listen to God. And
Exactly.
so, yeah. Anyways, but I think it's amazing that God allows us to be part of a process. So,
It is. It is.
And people think it's just about chicken.
yeah.
No way.
Yeah, people think a lot of things about Chick-fil-A, and we hear all the time that we're a Christian company, and I kind of, it's weird for me because my building isn't saved. It's just brick and mortar. What I always tell people is, but we run the business along biblical principles, and the principles are honor and dignity and respect. And when we treat everybody that way, it's going to bear fruit.
Absolutely.
Because so many people are missing that in their life.
Right, and they want to feel it.
That's right. They absolutely want to feel
Well,
it.
I didn't find it strange that the media tried to spin stuff against him when he was still alive.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
They were putting words in his mouth and stuff like that. And he was, the way he handled that was just,
Well, I think it
don't
was
have
a
the
learning.
words.
I think it was a learning curve for all of us. But I was always, and I would tell my friends, "Are you surprised that a devout Southern Baptist Christian is going to have this view?" I mean, he's not being hateful. He believes this. He
Right.
has a right to his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that we discriminate. Our crew, what makes our crew so amazing is we have 180 unique people
yeah.
of every race and every denomination.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's this melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we're influencing each other.
Right.
I don't care if you're straight, gay, white, black. It doesn't matter to me. I want you to be part of this family. And I want to influence you, and I want you to hopefully influence me too. And it's kind of worked. Our mission at Chick-fil-A from a corporate level has been to glorify God by being a faithful steward of what we've been given,
Amen to that.
and to have a positive influence on people.
Right.
Amen.
And what that spoke to me when I was a young kid, and I remember being 17, and I remember thinking, there's nothing in that about selling chicken. There's
No.
nothing in that about making
No.
money.
No.
I mean, these are wonderful things to want to do, even if you're not a Christian, to be a good steward
Right.
of what you've been given and to have a positive influence on people.
There's a news story that always stands out in my head. After the Pulse tragedy,
Yeah.
people were standing in line to donate blood.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A was the first business out there to provide free food to all the people
Yeah.
waiting in line, just trying to donate.
And we had a gentleman in here from the Pulse shooting.
Yes, we did.
One that
wow.
was standing right next to that guy. It was amazing. And they have gone to Washington or were going to Washington.
They have been really
They are
doing some
stirring up
amazing
some
things.
trouble for the devil. That's all I got to
Yeah,
say.
that was one of our owners. His name is Larry. He saw a need. And I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter who you are, we care. And I think a lot of Christians feel that way. They just love. They want to love people.
But it influenced other businesses when you guys did that.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
Chick-fil-A set the standard, and then Pizza Hut, I think it was Pizza Hut, was out there next, doing the same thing, handing out free pizza, because, they saw the community coming together there, just
Right.
trying to all...
Yeah. It didn't
Bridge a
matter who
need.
you were. It
It
was a
doesn't.
tragedy.
Right.
It was a tragedy, and we wanted to help.
I
Right.
think
we
when
all
you
felt-
realize that at the end of the day that God is the judge,
Oh, gosh.
That
It's
word.
so freeing, isn't it?
it is.
Yeah. I don't have to make it. Yeah.
No, we just have to love them.
That's right.
I
just
take
have
care
to
of the widows
present-
and orphans.
That's right. I just have to present and speak what God has given to me.
Right. Just don't miss an opportunity to do that.
And that's
and
it.
then let the Lord will seed
right.
time and harvest. The Lord will
Yeah.
will
what,
utilize that.
What a great feeling, because I don't
Oh,
have to
man,
worry about,
no.
I don't have to judge. I'm
Nope.
not the judge
You
of
don't.
anybody.
No.
And thank God, because I would look at myself and I would consider myself unworthy.
Well, it'd be pretty hard for for people to spin that because they don't. How do you come back with that?
Yeah.
I believe what I believe, but at the end of the day, God's the judge. I love everybody, and I'm going to continue to love everybody because that's what the Bible says to do.
Yeah.
You can't distort that.
The words of Christ, the message is so compelling. I don't understand how anybody, I could understand how maybe intellectually they can't get there. Because when you look at the story just as a story, it sounds kind of crazy, right? God came down and became a man and he died on a cross. I mean, I know it to be true, but I could understand somebody doubting that.
Right.
But when you look at the words alone, wouldn't you want that to be true?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you weren't a Christian, it's such a beautiful message.
It really
'cause
is.
Love, just love.
It was cool because we were having this conversation the other day as, what if Jesus was walking the earth present today?
Yeah.
How would we feel about him? And would we be like the disciples and go, yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just don't know. He says all the right things. He does miracles. He can't be the Christ, But it's kind of cool when you really sit in their shoes for a second. You can kind of understand why they were the way because we're looking through a stained glass window.
That's
We
right.
know all the variables. So
Yeah. That's
God, man, this is good stuff, man. I can talk to him all night. I got coffee.
true. Yeah. Well, I tell you, I wanted to share one final thing. Maybe
Please do.
My father, I shared a lot about him, and he went through a really rough patch. I mean, there was probably 10 years where he wasn't who he was. He was an alcoholic. He was abusive, and it was not a fun atmosphere to be in. But God allowed me and my father to make up. And so my father, the last 20 years of his life was amazing. And God allowed, so when he passed, I didn't have doubts about what could have been. And I really took it as a gift from God. My father had accepted Christ, but his Christian walk looked wildly different than mine. I mean, this was a guy from the streets of Italy. He was a recovering alcoholic. He was abusive to his wife and his kids. He had all this guilt to work through. And so we would joke because I would say, Dad, what Bible are you reading from? Is it the King Rico version? My dad's name was Rico because I don't know where that verse, it sounded different. And he got very sick at the end. And when he was in hospice, we realized he was going to pass. And so he looked at me. He was having trouble talking. He was dying from a COPD.
Sure.
And he was on, of course, oxygen. And, and he looked at me and he says, "What do you think? Am I going to make it?" And I looked at him, and at that point we were in hospice. So, I mean, you're in hospice.
You don't exactly
you're
walk
not
out of
coming
hospice.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I said, "No, Dad, unless God does a miracle, this is it, And he said, no, what do you think? Am I going to make it? And he was asking me,
if he was
am I going to heaven? And
wow.
So I sat there and I kind of swallowed that lump in my throat because
I know, right?
I had these two dads, one that was this terrible guy and then one that was this great guy. But I said the right thing. I said, Dad, the Bible says, it teaches that God forgives you and he puts your sin as far as the east is from the west.
Yep.
And so, yeah, Dad, I think you're going to be okay. And he kind of shook his head and smiled and then kind of went back to sleep. But for the rest of that day, it was killing me inside because I was wondering, is he going to make it?
Is he going to be all right?
Yeah.
Because we never know.
We don't ever know.
No.
And so God gave me this amazing gift, and I think it really speaks to who God is. And this has happened so rarely in my life. I think we all want God to scream and answer our, right? But we don't get that very often. But this one time he answered because I remember just being racked and wondering, what's going to happen. And so my mother had been in the hospital for several weeks with my father. So when I got there, I kind of took over and said, Mom, you go to sleep. And if anything happens, I'll wake you up and we'll take care of it. And so she'd go to sleep right away because she was exhausted. And I would be up and listening to my dad's breathing. And it was that, really labored breath. And so about 2 a.m, he stopped breathing. And so I was like, I'm just going to wait to make sure. I don't know if that's normal or not, but I didn't want to wake my mom up and say, hey, your husband of 50 years plus had died. So it went on. It was a minute, 2 minutes. In about 3 minutes, I realized I have to get Mom up.
Right.
And so I stood up to walk over and wake her up. And when I stood up, he went like that. And his eyes shot open. And he says, you were right. I saw this light. And then he went back to sleep. And he died like 3 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But I remember thinking
wow,
that God cares about us
Absolutely.
so much that he wants to remind us, hey, I'm here. And maybe not every situation, but
No.
he does. and maybe it's when you need it the most.
Right.
But I think I needed it that night.
Absolutely.
Most. So, anyways, that was
That's the first watch, isn't it? He died on the first watch.
Yeah, you're
No,
right.
third
Yeah.
watch.
Third watch.
Third
yeah.
watch, is it?
Yeah. 3 in the morning. 2
Oh,
in the
you're right.
morning.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but that was a good. To me, it was an answered prayer that I didn't even know I was saying. I needed it. I needed to know,
Mhm.
that I would see my father again, and God cared. He just cares about us.
Just threw you that bone.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, you talked about that.
Absolutely.
Well, we ask for him all the time. Lord, show us. Please show up.
Do you get a lot of them, or do you only when you?
Most of the time, if I ask sincerely,
That's awesome. Yeah.
he answers.
Yeah.
He does, because he knows that we get tired and stressed out and worry, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, it's his show. It's not ours.
Right.
And,
Yeah. Similar to that, my mother, my middle sister, was really concerned about my mother when she passed. Partially because she was, I guess, my mother was in a room, and my sister was thinking, I'll leave this here by the bed for her so she won't have to reach for it and everything else. But when my mother got up, she tripped over it and broke her hip.
Oh, geez.
And they didn't find her for three or 4 days later.
Oh,
wow.
And then she ended up in the hospital, so she blaming herself.
Wow. Yeah. What a tough.
Right. And she was really, really taken back from it. And she had asked me, she knows, again, I was probably the first one in my family that knows Jesus for who he really is. And she had asked me, do you think, I'm really concerned. Do you think Mom is in heaven? And, she was really, really taken back from it. And then I just prayed a simple prayer. And within a day or two, I got an answer, yes.
Oh, wow.
So I was able to relay that to her and made her feel,
Yeah.
it wasn't her fault. And, or even if it was, she's there.
In a good place.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We've all lost people that are close to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. I mean, when you lose parents, there's no easy way.
Yeah, you're never ready.
No. I mean, I don't care if you've got 6 years of watching, you're never ready.
Never ready.
But I don't know that I mean, to me, if I really truly believe in heaven, I believe that they're not alone. Like, we're together where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't miss us. I mean, they've got it, going, and they're in a great place. Now, we miss them because we're still stuck here.
Right.
But at some point we're going to, join them, and I believe it's instantaneous. Like, I think my father, when he opens his eyes, all of us will be there. And I don't know how that works, but I just can't imagine heaven without the people you care and love about. So maybe that's not good theology, but
Yeah.
Well, I think there is something to the extent that the people that you help influence to be there, they will be there, and
Yeah, I agree with that. 1,000%.
they'll be right there with you.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna say, "Who are you?" Like you were saying earlier. Who's this one? Who is that?
It's going to be wonderful. I know that.
But you won't even always probably remember, or you won't have any idea of the influence you guys are having.
No.
But, I listened to several of your shows and the last few days, and I was being moved by. I listened to the gentleman who lost his son, Julian.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yes.
was a great
Wow,
episode, and
Yeah, he's another small business owner, Windu
and
Comics.
it made honestly, I've said I'm going to go visit him just so I can meet him now.
Oh, that's awesome.
But you guys are influencing people, and you're influencing non-Christians, I believe, but you're also influencing Christians.
Right.
I mean, we need the reminders of why we first made this step.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is hard. We were kind of joking about it before. It's hard, and this world is full of hurts.
And you're going to come across parts in your life where you need hope.
Gosh, yes.
You need comfort.
Yeah.
And it's important that we all support each other.
That's right. Yeah.
So, that's something that the show's been amazing in allowing us to meet all these different people.
Yeah, amen to that.
And share their story, and some of them we get to know on a more personal level, and it's just amazing. Yeah. It works both ways. We're influenced by them as well.
Which is, I think, any great, that's really the relationship we're supposed to be. We're supposed to pick each other up when we're down, But, I think that when I first became a Christian, I believed that everything was going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then I started reading Job.
You're in good company.
And I said, wait a minute, Job loved God and everything went wrong. And, I read that one verse where he is talking to his wife. If his wife has finally had it, and she tells him, why don't you just curse God and die?
Right.
And he turns to her and he says, you foolish woman, which I would never be able to get away with. But
Right.
who are we? Yes.
To accept good things.
And not evil.
Right.
And I remind myself of that all the time, that God, he didn't sell us a pitch. That he told us this is life. And it's going to be great and it's going to be terrible and there's a reward at the end. And in the meantime, help each other.
Right.
Yep.
And I think it's an honor to do it, but it's so hard sometimes.
The first time I read Ecclesiastes, I just thought he had a bad attitude. And then when the Lord opened my eyes to that book, I love that book because, and I almost get a chuckle. And I'll say to her, it's all meaningless. Love your wife.
Yes.
It's the primary verse in the whole book is love your wife. And everything else is meaningless.
Yeah. It's not always an upper. I mean,
no.
But we have this hope, and that's what in a world where everybody seems to be anxious.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
So we, one thing that we've started offering at our stores is counseling. So I actually, if somebody is anxious and they tell me, we'll pay for them to go visit a counselor, and we found this amazing woman who is awesome with young girls at teenage.
It's fantastic.
And we found an amazing guy, and they both are Christians, but they're amazing counselors too.
Okay.
And I tell these kids all the time, the Bible, God said more than almost any other words. He says, "Do not be afraid." And he said it because he knew we were going to be afraid.
Yeah.
That there were going to be things that scared the crud out of us. So it's not wrong to feel anxious,
right,
as long as you know you've got this hope, this anchor.
Right.
And I think what hurts so many of the kids now is they don't have the anchor anymore.
Right.
So they have all the anxiety that we felt without any of that hope. And it's got to be a scary world.
And the percentage of, just to add on to that, the percentage of broken homes, and kids don't have the father figure, or they don't have the mother figure, and they suffer.
And the separation of the truth in society, because when we were growing up, there were a lot of people who were Christian or had that faith base. And so you could get solid advice, sage advice from people. That doesn't exist in this day and age.
No.
Such
in
a
the same
much.
way.
No.
Such a postmodern world where they want the spirituality, but they don't want any of the what they see are boundaries. And I tell people, Jesus is not a boundary. Jesus is freedom.
Amen to that.
I mean, he doesn't want you to not do things because he doesn't want you to have fun. He's trying to keep you from royally messing up.
Right.
I mean, you want to know why there's divorces and people are abusive toward each other and people drink or smoke. It's because we've given in sometimes to, these things that God is screaming at us. Don't do. But we have free will.
Yep.
Yes, we do. And the Holy Spirit's a gentleman. And, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
And as we were talking about Job, and all that stuff that happened and everything else, there is chapter 42.
Well, he got twice what he had.
Yes, he did. That's right.
Amen to that.
42:10. The Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before.
That's right.
Well, and isn't it amazing to see somebody who's going through something and yet still you can tell they've got that joy and that hope.
Yep.
Those are the greatest testimonies to me. You
That
know?
is truly the peace that
Yeah.
passeth all understanding, because
That's right.
you look at them and you go,
Yeah.
you're happy. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, you're smiling. And
Yeah, in spite of everything.
In spite. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you guys. That's a great point. At the end, it came out pretty good.
Well, Joseph, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you're right about that.
From the prison to the palace.
Prison to the palace, baby.
24 hours.
You know it.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite parts of the Bible, other than that. And then even with crazy Jonah, the whale spit him up where he was supposed to be.
Yep.
You know, it's amazing. You forget all these great stories.
You really do.
Because I end up reading the same verses. Or
I
the
have
same
favorites
books.
too.
Yeah. But I keep saying I need to get back into everything because you forget how wonderful some of these books are and how much you can pull out of stuff. You know, so.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Well, we
Wow.
sure appreciate you
Gosh,
coming
do
on the
we
show,
ever.
Absolutely.
Rocky.
No, I enjoyed
It's so
being here.
cool to get an
you.
inside look of Chick-fil-A, you know, because you don't hear about these stories that, you know, they pay for counseling and that, you know, employees are mentoring
Oh, it's
employees
wonderful.
and there's team leaders and pastors
Right.
being involved while they're in the drive-through.
Yeah.
So
With
when you
chicken.
went to Georgia to interview, did you sit down with Mr. Cathy?
Yeah, I did. In fact, I got a chance to
Oh, that's
know
so
Mr.
cool.
Cathy pretty well. And, you know, what I always tell people is he was the real deal.
Yes,
he was. Absolutely.
He lived in the same house that he bought when him and his wife got married. He had never left the house. Now, he bought property around it. He liked to collect cars, so he had
Yes.
cars. But he was always a humble man. He opened up 11 foster homes where the husband and wife, they were paid to be foster parents, and they would have 11 to 13 kids. And yet he had this amazing sense of humor. Truett was really funny guy. And people didn't get a chance to see it, but he loved playing jokes. He used to like to ride motorbikes. And so he'd invite you out to ride bikes with him. And then he would get to this one part of his property and spin out and get everybody filthy dirty. And just loved it. But he truly was a great man, and he lived it. So it was a bit.
The way he handled the national media, you know, I had all respect for that gentleman.
Yeah.
That's the real deal.
Yeah. Well, and you know, to me, and you mentioned it before, Mike, work is work. It's tough. You have days where you wonder what you're doing to yourself, you know, and we're trying to have all these influences and we're trying to be good people in the midst of war. It's a warfare. We talk about at our store, you know, I mentioned Chick-fil-A's mission statement. At our stores, our mission is we try to make it really simple. And we talk about how everybody in this world is living their story. And you don't know what chapter they're in when they come into the store.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes they're going to the store, but they're waiting because their mother's in surgery, or maybe they're struggling because their marriage is on the rocks, or maybe they're meeting a friend they haven't seen in 30 years and it's a good visit. But we don't know where we're catching them in that story.
Right.
And so our mission is just to make that story better somehow.
Right.
And if we make their story better, and I make my team's story better, and they make my story better, if we do that, then most days we go home and feel like we still accomplished something.
Right.
Even in the midst of everything, you know, the mess. So anyways, I appreciate
It's just
you guys.
being in the kitchen with Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really.
I like that. That's
You know,
a great
making
analogy.
Jesus beautiful. That's what Renault said. If we could just make Jesus beautiful, you know, then all else would fall into place.
Yeah.
I'll hook you up with the session number.
I need to listen to it now. And I agree with you. His voice is just anybody with an accent can just.
I think it's 206.
206, yeah.
You guys have a lot of episodes. I was trying to listen. I thought maybe I could listen to a bunch of them, and I was like, "There's no way.
No.
I can't listen to 200 all in one."
You know
week,
that
so.
we have a couple of individuals that have done it though,
From start to finish.
and then they call me
still
up
do.
and go, "When's the next one? I'm done."
Yeah, you guys have a long...
And I went, whoa.
You guys have a big enough catalog so I can listen to you guys for a while, because I'm always trying to rediscover new podcasts. So I'll listen as I'm shaving or driving to work. And
well, we're going to dial into yours too, and I want you to talk about that before you leave, so that the people that are listening right now can tune into that podcast as well. So
not only that, GSR is the king of the shameless plug.
That we are.
There's nothing wrong with that, And you guys are plugging a very good message, so it's okay to be,
I'll shamelessly plug Chick-fil-A.
Absolutely. We got a couple freebies right here.
We've done it for years. And
I actually listened to a couple of your episodes where you mentioned Chick-fil-A, so I was like, okay all right. I'm not going into enemy territory. They like Chick-fil-A.
Oh, no. So. Between Chick-fil-A and Starbucks, they get plenty of free publicity.
Since this Chick-fil-A opened over here on the corner,
baby.
I don't want to tell you how many times a week we eat at Chick-fil-A.
I said he looked familiar, and so I'm going to walk in and see you, I'm sure, one day. But
I sure hope so. I hope that we get together, and I want to come over and sit with you and Larry while you're podcasting. And
I would love you to. And
anything that I can do to help you guys, the studio's yours.
I'm eyeing your technology, so you can help us for sure. We started our podcast is called A Server's Journey. And
Server's Journey.
I've been convicted my whole entire adult life that everybody leads, and we have to lead.
Yes,
as a servant.
Amen.
And
well, Jesus said it in the Bible.
Amen.
First is last, and last is first. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm always touched by the story, kind of the impetus, the real fire lighting for the show is I was reading about the time that Jesus washed the disciples' feet.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah. And so you look at, if you look at those verses and you really read it, he says, or the Bible says that all the power of God descended on Jesus. So this is the same power that created the universe.
I know.
Everything. And immediately his next move was he got up, he took off his outer clothing, he wrapped a towel around his waist, and he served his disciples.
Right. Especially Judas.
The person who was going, Jesus was going to be dead in 12 to 14. He knew all this.
Right.
And he served. And so that's what our show is about, is that we lead without knowing, and we have to serve. We have to be a servant. So I'll definitely have you guys come on to our show.
I would love it. And please, open invitation for you and Larry to come back as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring Larry and Zach. He brings the age way down. He's only 22, but I have to warn you, Larry's a director, so he does order me around quite a bit. Sometimes I'm like, Larry, are you mad at me?
He's just the alpha director.
Oh, he is. Yes.
When you've been doing it for that long, it's kind of what you know.
Yeah, he knows what he wants.
Exactly.
And he's not afraid to tell us.
There we go.
Good,
there we go. Man.
What a great show!
Golly,
absolutely.
It's been an hour, and I just feel like we could be here for a couple more. And sometime we're going to have to do that.
Yeah. Well, next meal, we'll meet next time at Chick-fil-A, and we can talk as long as you guys want to.
All right.
Oh man,
I go to the other one though. I don't go to the new one.
So you got to go to the new one just because
every time I drive by, it looks so packed.
It's not. It's actually slower.
It goes fast though. That drive-through is clockwork.
I don't do drive-through. I go right in.
You got to come in and have breakfast with me one morning. I love that store because it's so quiet in the morning.
Nice.
When's that?
Well, I typically get there around 8, and I'll buy you coffee and chicken biscuits, and we can look at the lake out the window and talk. It's great.
Right down here?
Yeah.
Oh.
Come on. Anytime you guys want to. It's all I can offer is Chick-fil-A. I don't have much.
Please, you've offered your testimony.
Yeah.
It's just so nice to hear how Chick-fil-A, the vehicle of Chick-fil-A, is used to just give people hope and comfort. Encouragement
and just happiness in general. Those Chick-fil-A cows make me so happy.
I got hugged by one person.
Yeah, Mikey. That's right. Mikey's a celeb,
and I think you might have known him too, which is makes it even more special.
This is awesome. This is just awesome. I just sit here all night. But anyway, hey, thanks for tuning in with us. Want to thank everybody that was on Mixlr tonight. And just thank all the people that pray for us and support us. And we just love you and appreciate you. And thank you for just being there for us and not allowing us to quit.
Yeah.
But
These last 2 weeks were long weeks.
Yeah. Yes, sir, it was. But if you have a prayer request, or if God's kind of pricking your heart to give your testimony, drop us a line at godstoriesradio@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, please. Mm-hmm. Smash that like button. We love our Facebook family because we put prayer requests and things out there, and all of you get it at the same time, and that's kind of a great way to talk to everybody all at once. What else can they do, Mikey?
They can twit us.
They can twit us on Twitter.
I like that.
And we just appreciate it. And check out our website, godstoriesradio.com. And you can always go to all the different podcasts, previous podcasts that we have. The website is fixed now, so you can get to all of them. That is if you don't listen on Spotify or iHeartRadio or iTunes Radio, Spreaker, Stitcher,
or radio.com.
Radio.com.
There's a lot of them now, aren't there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, radio.com is the newest that we're on. And they asked
Well,
they asked us. They asked us to be on the app.
oh, that's good.
They didn't ask us from the
Right.
from the app.
Uh-huh.
We understood.
Yeah. Woo, I'm glad you did. I was making myself nervous there for a second. But, oh, well, man. Okay. I don't really want to end. I just want to, I'm so enjoying Rocky here with us tonight. And,
Thank you.
Again, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. So,
Anytime.
well, that about wraps it up for session 211. I'm Fritz.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Tina.
God bless you.
God bless.
God bless.
I said, God, I do not understand this world. Everything is dying and broken. Why do I see nothing but suffering? God, I'm asking, could this be your plan? Sin has taken hold of this whole land. Will you not say anything else to me? He said, where were you the day that I measured, sunk the base and stretched the line over all the earth and carved out its cornerstone? Where were you the day that I spoke and told the sun to split the night open, called the morning dawn with its light to show? Who shut in the ocean with stone doors, marked the reach of tides on those new shores, on the day the waves rose and first broke forth? Have you seen the springs of that great sea? Walked the caverns carved in the black deep, through the gates of darkness there on its floor? Have you seen the armory I hold? Snow and hail are stacked up in silos for the times of trouble and war and strife. did not understand. Things too wonderful for me, although I had no right to ask. My God knelt and answered me.